AI policies and AI usage and bills that are getting passed in the US right now, actually comprehensive attempts to classify and regulate AI systems, specifically those that are like deemed high risk.
The moment that we start creating our own policies and understanding our approach towards it, we become hyper vigilant about other people's approaches for it.
AI generated images to sell like this super magical Willy Wonka style factory. And when people showed up with their kids, it was just an empty warehouse.
You're listening to ArtForm Intelligence.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm here with Haiteli Arnell, our Director of Marketing at ArtForm, and Ryan Pepper, our Operations Manager at ArtForm. Today, we are going to have a conversation about AI, specifically how we balance innovation with the ethics of it. It's a really big topic right now that everyone's talking about. Everyone has different opinions. Everyone has different thoughts and feelings about it. But at ArtForm, we spend a lot of time researching these tools, using these tools, doing deep dives into these tools, and looking at what it looks like to implement these tools in daily workflows. Haiteli, I know you have a ton of experience and time that you've put in and are just also a big AI nerd, as you've self-proclaimed.
For sure.
So, if you want to give like a little background on why you think AI tools are so innovative and why it's changing the landscape so much and your interest in it. And then we can kind of just hop into the conversation.
Yeah, totally. I think first and foremost, it's impossible to ignore AI just because it's literally everywhere. It's a buzzword now. Like, if you could implement AI in like dog food, I think they would. And I think people would buy it just because AI is everywhere. But I think mainly for me is like I like to say I'm a creative person. I'm an artist off time. Like that's some of my hobbies. And I think it's as marketers, I think we're inherently have to be creative, not necessarily in the traditional I draw, I paint, I act, I sing creative way, but we have to be creative in the way that we're always pivoting in the market. We're always having to keep up with the changes and be creative in the way that we can always achieve our goals. Because at the end of the day, marketing is all about understanding people and how people react and how to influence people and how to find people where they're at. And so in order to do those things, we have to inherently be creative in the way that we get to our goals and our end result. So I think the best way to start about the conversation with AI and its ethics, it's AI is just changing what it means to be creative. So we're seeing that generative tools can write copy, they can design logos. I've even played with a tool last week that can generate people, like influencers that speak. I tested it on myself. It copied my voice. I uploaded pictures of me. It created an avatar of myself. It didn't look great. I will say, like you could tell because the teeth look kind of funky, but there are avatars that I've seen that are really good. And I will say, like, that's kind of, this is total like side note funny. The avatar had I had really long hair at the time. I had short hair and I was like, oh, I should cut my hair. And I did. So, there's some use for that tool there, and inspiration. But yeah, on the surface level, when it comes to AI tools, it looks like unlimited creativity. But I think ethically, it's worth taking a moment and just using strategic thinking of our own human brain to think about it. So I was looking at a Forbes article a while back, and it talked about AI empowering innovation, but without ethics, that creativity has a risk because creativity can become shallow, or it becomes really manipulative. So let's talk about that AI influencer avatar, for example. So there was a virtual influencer named Tinsley. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but they can create endless content. They don't sleep. They're not real. It's an AI model. And so she doesn't need breaks. She doesn't age. She's always on. But then that's kind of, I think, where that ethics question comes in. She isn't human. She's not real. And then if audiences trust her, who's accountable if she's misleading? And what happens to those human influencers and those human people that create content, who bring their real stories, their real struggles, and have that authenticity. So I think that's where that creativity and ethics kind of collide. So AI can really scale our own imagination, but we as humans, in the marketers in this case, we have to guide it with responsibility. We have to guide it with truth, because at the end of the day, we're the ones that are going to be reacting to it. So I think that's just worth a conversation. I think it's worth a pause of when you're thinking about which AI tools you're taking on, to stop it and think, because what are you replacing? I think a while ago I was asking my GPT, just out of curiosity, how many hours a day do I save based on the work that I do with you, from my day to day? How many hours do I save? And it says, oh, you save like between 4 to 6 hours. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's a lot. And then it forecasted that over the next year, it's going to save me another full time and a half person of being on my team. And at first that was really exciting, right? Because I'm like, wow, I am so efficient. I can do so much more. But I think that's where that ethics question comes in, is like, is that person replacing another actual human being that could be on my team? Is this person is this tool going to replace me? And I think being able to just have pause, we have a lot of AI policies in place. We've done a lot of AI readiness checklists. We do that every single time we onboard a tool. And I think it's just reframing and re-putting the importance on the human, because all it's doing, and I think that's the way I'm viewing this, is all it's doing is AI is allowing me to free up my strategic thinking time. It's allowing me to free up my brain space so I can do more. Like it's a tool that's going to enhance my work, to be able to do more, to be able to do more for my clients without having to sacrifice my own burnout. And I think as we view it that way, rather than, oh, it's just going to replace somebody else, that's not true. We're actively hiring, but we do encourage all of our team members to use these AI tools to enhance their own work, not to replace themselves or the work of others, because we still need to be strategic thinkers. AI is wrong. AI can be shallow in its creativity. AI can just rinse and repeat, but we're the ones that are just going to take that and make it great and make it useful, whatever it outputs.
Wow. Yeah, talking about AI policy, because I think that's like a big part of how we implement it. Do you know how many companies are actually implementing an AI policy or have an AI policy?
Less than you would think. So, we work in the large enterprise space. So we're working with the billion-dollar enterprises, and we're working with billion-dollar enterprises that have AI solutions. Like I've worked with enterprises that have AI SaaS offerings. And when we go to talk to them about, what are you doing for AI? Like how, we try to be transparent in our usage of AI to our clients, because I think that really builds trust, and it pass off the savings to our clients. Like, hey, we're saving X amount of time. That means we can do X amount more for you within the same bucket of hours or retainer or model that they're working with us. But when I go and ask, like, well, what's your AI policy to make sure that we're being compliant with what your expectations are? And a lot of the answers that I get is like, oh, we don't have one. Which is crazy, because these are large enterprises. Yeah, large enterprises that have AI offerings. They have AI all over their website. And they're like, oh, we don't really have one. And so we do a lot of these trainings and workshops with people to do exactly what we just talked about, which is just take a pause, take a step back, and understand what are the tools that is available to your workforce. Where do you stand ethically that aligns with your mission and vision and values as a company, as in a business, and how is that translated in the usage of your tools? It's not really any different than any other tools, like internet usage. I know a lot of places that we've had to sign, and previous experiences and clients that I work with that have to sign like a online website usage policy, expectations of how to behave online. And that's really no different than an AI policy, but a lot of places don't have that, which is crazy. And something that should be first and foremost before you even talk AI is understanding, how do you use it? What is your policy against it? And are you even ready to adopt any AI tool? And is your workforce going to be equipped for success as they implement that in their day-to-day?
The usage of AI is such a new frontier for a lot of people, and there's no dedicated handbook or playbook that people can use it or run to be able to implement it easily and effectively. So all of these companies have to create that themselves. But before they do that, they need to be able to sit down and understand their ethics and their understanding and approach towards it comparably to others. So everybody's kind of building their own. There's a lot of different versions of the same exact wheel, but they're fitting specifically within their companies, and it needs to be done. It's very easy to go blindly in and use AI and see what happens, but at the end of the day, it can cause a lot of issues down the road if you don't take a moment, take some very precious time to see how it applies to your company, how you approach it, and then go forward with it.
What that really leads into is just transparency. And I think as marketers, we know that trust is just the foundation of what we do. But in the AI era, is what we can call it, is that a lot of brands fall into AI washing. So that's when those companies really exaggerate or misrepresent their AI capabilities to sound more innovative than they really actually are. And I think that's just because it's moving and evolving so fast. It's hard to stay up and keep up with what the new AI capabilities are. And, I think we've all seen if you put AI as a buzzword in your content, it's going to perform better just because that's what people are looking for. And I think where that transparency is really important in terms of ethics, is just making sure that we're not using AI to mislead. I want to use a really extreme example that was from a while ago. But I have a 2-year-old daughter, and if I would have taken her to this event, oh my gosh, I would have died. This would have been so funny, but it's the Glasgow, it was the Willie's chocolate experience. I'm not sure if you remember, that was a while ago. But it was an event that the organizers used AI generated images to sell this super magical Willy Wonka style factory. And when people showed up with their kids and their families, it was just an empty warehouse. It had props scattered.
Oh, no.
It's terrible. If we could link pictures for this, we should.
I'll see if I can find something.
It's yeah, if I would have shown up, I would have been how I was bamboozled, and they were bamboozled, and parents were outraged, the kids are crying. And it's just a really, really extreme example of being, misleading. But I think that's what happens when you're just relying on AI to create hype and to create excitement and to create a click rather than truth. So I think it's really our responsibility to just, if AI helped create something, be upfront about it. It's transparency isn't just really a nice to have in the case of AI. It's kind of how we preserve that trust with our audiences and preserve that trust as a brand.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I even see examples where, we don't fully have the solution and we say, this is what we know, but this is also what we don't know. Now we're going to work on this and keep you updated. And I think clients really appreciate that because they feel like they're learning along with us as well, which I think is really interesting and a good way to approach it. So let's talk about authenticity, because I think a lot of what people don't realize about AI is the data model that you're using is going to greatly affect the output, right? So when we talk about creating these campaigns that don't feel, one, derivative of things we've seen before, that's just kind of copy and paste of other things that we've seen out in the market. Can you just talk a little bit about that and how we approach using it for actual innovative new ideas and designs and et cetera?
Yeah, I think first and foremost is if you've decided that your organization is ready to implement and totally embrace AI, which everyone really should, to use it as a tool, you've done your AI readiness checklist, you've done your AI policies, you've identified which tools are going to best serve you and your workforce. Then there's phases, right? It's we've got the tool, great. Does anyone know how to prompt it? Because prompt engineering is really important in the use of AI, because at the end of the day, your AI tool can do anything, right? Let's use ChatGPT as an example, especially with ChatGPT 5, ChatGPT agent mode. Like it is a subject matter expert in every single thing you can imagine in your back pocket. But if you don't know how to prompt or prompt engineer because you, as the human, don't understand what the final output is supposed to look like, you're not going to know to tell it what to generate. So I think another example is, let's say I'm doing a VRIO analysis, which is a competitive landscape analysis that we do all the time, right? If I were to give that task to someone on my team who is not a competitive analyst, they are not a research and market development SME, that's not their area, right? Let's say I give it to someone who is strictly our graphic designer, okay? And most of our team members are really well-rounded, but let's say for the sake of this experiment, they are just our graphic designer. They don't know how to do that. So I'm going to say, hey, go use this AI tool because AI can do anything. Go do this VRIO analysis, and ChatGPT is going to know how to do it. Great. They're going to go in and say, I need a VRIO analysis for this industry. And that's all they're going to give it, right? And it's going to output a VRIO analysis. But because that person doesn't know what the output is supposed to look like because they don't actually know how to do it, or they don't know how to give it the context, the information, or steer it in the right direction of what exactly we want to see as the final output, because they don't know, it's going to give something that is copy and pasted, really generic, really high level. It's just going to be words, right? It's going to be okay, but it's just going to be words, because at the end of the day, when we don't have authenticity in our training models or in our prompt engineering, I think that's when we really see conformity. That's when we're going to see those copy and paste generic output answers. So it's really about, one, your prompt engineering, and then making sure that you are training your models for your enterprise accordingly, and that you are giving it context, and you are giving it data sets that are going to have an output that align with your organization. I think a really good example of an enterprise that did this incorrectly, that really gave into conformity, is if we look in the beauty industry, right? So we're seeing a lot of AI generated models that are really reinforcing that like single hyper perfect meta face, like something that everyone looks the same. It's very uniform. And then Vogue Business reported on this and talked about the impact of like, what does that mean for consumers and what does that mean for the audience? All consumers are seeing is one type of beauty. They're all seeing one type of output. And that's not creativity. That's just conformity. And that applies to not just something that's visual like the beauty industry, but every single industry, every single vertical. If you're if you're heavily using AI, that's not the problem. The problem is are you using AI in the way that's correct, authentic? Are you prompt engineering in a way that is coming from a human? Are you reviewing the output to ensure that authenticity and to use your brain for strategic thinking after the AI model has given you whatever you need or whatever the tool has put that output? So I think that's where we as marketers can make sure that authenticity is the bridge. So a good example, let's still talk about the beauty industry. So some brands are taking the opposite approach of that conformity and using AI models. So like Dove, for example, they've invested in ensuring that their AI systems are trained on that diverse, inclusive data sets. So their campaigns are promoting things that are actually reflecting real people, real beauty, real diversity in looks and lifestyles and cultures and backgrounds, and not just what the algorithm says this is the box, right? This is what we can conform to. And I think that's the difference that ethics makes in all of our usage of AI, but as marketers specifically, is that AI can really narrow our creativity, like we were talking about earlier, to what AI thinks is the ideal, right? Or it can really expand to reflect our human natures and everything that is encompassing of that. So what the output is still authentic for our audiences. So I think the main takeaway for authenticity is just if AI content doesn't align with your human truth or your human brain at the very least, you're risking eroding trust with your audiences versus building it.
And it's interesting too, even just hearing you talk about this, in a way, we can kind of almost make ourselves redundant when we kind of fall back on these general prompts, because any client can go and do that. The reason why we're hired to do it is because we bring the experience, the expertise, to the table. And I think if you get into the habit as a marketer to just kind of do the generic prompt into whatever generative model you're using, and kind of saying, oh, it's good enough, we'll use that. I mean, then what's the point of, having you be the one doing it? And I think that's the key is who's the expert that's using it, right? Where do you notice issues when it comes to bias, as well as things like privacy? Because I know there's certain marketing industries, let's say like pharma, for example, that has a lot of FDA requirements where they can't use a lot of open models. They have to be very strict with how they go through their compliance of what they're putting out. So what does that look like? How do we approach that? And what have you seen sort of out in the market right now?
Yeah, I think AI is only as fair as the data it's trained on. And the reality is that most data sets reflect biases. And so if we just word vomit the data into our AI models or our AI tools, I think those biases are going to be spread into the outputs and decisions that humans make based off of those AI outputs. So I think just like a quick example. So AI facial recognition has made waves. But it can misidentify people, and it's known to misidentify certain groups of people at higher rates than a different group. So let's say that that's your data set and that's what you've had, and you just let it go. What if that same technology is applied to something like ad targeting or personalization for who sees your ads and bid optimizations when you are doing any paid media buy? You have demographics of people and audiences that get left out. So you're going to miss the people that you're trying to target where they're at, and you're going to have missed ad spend in that case, or missed media buy, because you're just your data set's going to be biased towards groups of people in a setting where you probably want to have a lot more control over your targeting and your advertising than just letting AI do its thing. So I think the important thing is just making sure that you are aware as a human about your data and the data that you are feeding it, and making sure that your data is clean, it is strong, you understand your data first and foremost. I think AI is a great, great tool. If you would just want to upload a data set and tell me, what does this say? Yeah, that's great. But if you as a human, or you don't have someone on your team that is a human that understands what your data is, how it was collected, why it was collected, and all the contextual nuances about your data, you're going to lose that. And you're going to lose the ability to identify trends or biases or outliers in your data that when you just give it to AI or an AI tool or a model that's just going to be trained on, that's all it's going to see is the data. So it could identify or be trained on things that don't have those nuances, are incorrect. And so just, having those data analysts, data engineers are still super important. And I think I see a lot of things online about some job titles that are going to be replaced by AI. And I think data is consistently something that keeps coming up. But we have data analysts and we desperately need them, and they use AI tools. They use AI tools to be more efficient, more accurate, and again, to free up their time for higher strategic thinking. Because we need our data to be clean. We need our models to understand the context. And if we get it, we start seeing outputs from our AI tools that we're like, that's not right. We're able to then meet as a team, as human beings, and go to our subject matter experts and say, why is this isn't right? This something's not computing. And we're able to look back at our models, our data, the way it's trained in order to identify some of those bumps or those issues or nuances that AI just doesn't understand. I think the other thing that we see a lot is just privacy in the AI space. So AI is all about data, machine learning, data, available data, data mining. That's what it's doing 100% of the time, is just really taking data, comparing it, and then outputting at a really, 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 really simple level. But I think there is a conversation that we see a lot of the times is about harvesting consumer behavior without any guardrails or boundaries that could cross an ethical line. So, as marketers, and I think our marketing tools when it comes to our traditional platforms have done a good job and will continue to evolve as AI evolves. But in having those guardrails and privacy protections for consumers to a degree. But as marketers, we're really tasked with balancing personalization with protection of our audiences. So I think our consumers and our audiences deserve experiences that feel relevant without feeling invasive. So a really good example of this is I love chat GPTing, now that that's a verb, myself, just to see what's available online and how deep it can dig. And it's pretty incredible what it can find out about a person from a chat GPT prompt and what it knows about you. So I think having AI policies about how you use a tool and having your internal privacy policies about how deep can you go on a persona, how detailed, how invasive are we going to be to understand where this person goes. And so just having some guardrails up for ourselves ethically, for enterprises and organizations ethically, of privacy, how we protect our consumers in a way that we can still really reach them where they're at. We can be really efficient, really effective with our marketing and targeting without being invasive. Because I think once we become really invasive, that erodes trust as well. I know if I were to be served an ad that says in 2016, you did XYZ while you were in college, are you interested in this product? I would forever block that product from my mind. I would never want to be served an ad from them again. I would, there is a sense of safety and privacy that we're responsible for in using all of these tools. So, I think where creativity really thrives is when people feel safe and respected and still are able to see an asset or something that's in market and says, wow, this really hits the nail on the head for me. And I think that's why fairness and privacy aren't just compliance issues. They're really those creative enablers for us.
Interesting.
Kind of ties back to what we were talking about previously about understanding our own personal approach to AIs and creating our own policies, because the moment that we start creating our own policies and understanding our approach towards it, we become hyper vigilant about other people's approaches for it. And we start understanding privacy to a deeper degree because we were just thinking about that to us. And now you get to experience that on the other side. Now, as the consumer, how am I approaching it? What do I feel comfortable with? And it helps evolve both of those things. It helps your company, your team shape and create your policy even better. Maybe see things the way that it wasn't seen before. And as you approach tools and other companies that are utilizing AI, you're able to see these things and say like, oh, this is like how we align correctly, or our understanding is very similar, or that one we don't particularly see eye to eye and we don't agree with that approach. So you kind of have your eyes opened to the privacy element of those just by getting more experience and getting familiar with it through your own applications at your own company.
Yeah, you're basically creating a framework
For
and then kind of applying that to all areas. Yeah, that's really interesting. And then, zooming out even further, when we look at regulation and governance of AI, what are you seeing there?
Yeah, so let's talk about governance worldwide. So governments across the globe are starting to catch up. So the EU has an AI Act, which is really one of the first actually comprehensive attempts to classify and regulate AI systems, specifically those that are like deemed high risk. There's a lot of chatter about AI policies and AI usage and bills that are getting passed in the US right now. So I think, we are government contractors, we are federal contractors. We have active clients in that space. So I feel pretty safe to say that the government is slow to catch up. And they are slow to adopt sometimes just because there's a lot of layers of management. There's a lot of layers of government just alone to get things passed, understood, regulated, et cetera, et cetera. So there are, nonprofits and like the International Association of Safe and Ethical AI that are trying to push for consistent standards. There's a lot of content out there talking about regulation, but the key point here is just that regulation is absolutely important, but as marketers and as individuals, we cannot wait for governments or institutions or nonprofits or anyone to tell us what's ethical. Just because brands should be building your own AI policies right now. There should be no waiting for someone else to tell us what that looks like. I think when that comes out, that's going to be great. It's going to give great standards for people that have waited or are still adopting AI, and it's going to set guardrails for everybody on a national and a global level. But right now, I think there is an action to be taken is that we all need policies around disclosure, fairness, and inclusivity when it comes to your data sets, human oversight. What is your policy for a human to be involved in that AI workflow? So as we do that, that's how we're going to lead, because our responsible governance is ensuring that our creativity isn't just innovative. It all is going to tie back to that trustworthiness. And Pepper on our team has done just a fantastic job, because I think a struggle, and we're a small business, so I know that this is just multiplied tenfold at large enterprises or larger organizations, but we have multiple AI tools. We have people who are at different levels of using those AI tools across our teams. And so I think a challenge when it comes to governance and responsible practice is two-sided. So one of that is making sure that your AI policies and your disclosures and your essentially your mission and vision and values on AI is replicated and repeated across the team. Does everyone understand that? And I think the second leg of that is, okay, you have all these great AI tools. We have the guardrails set up to be successful for these. Are people using it? How are they using it? And I think that's a challenge in itself that I know as an operations manager that you've had challenges with, and we have these ongoing conversations about all the time.
Correct. Yeah, I feel like it's a balance between you don't want it to be constricting to the point of control, because in a creative environment like us, like we need that room, we need that air to be able to be creative and innovative in those spaces and stuff. So it's constantly a flex of maintaining the shape of the environment that we want to make sure that we're abiding by those policies, that we're being respectful and understanding those areas, but still allowing some gray edges on the outside so that can expand and our creativity can really grow into it. So it can't be directly drawn in a borders map but it can be fostered to really allow people the things that they need to grow and be creative and find innovative ways of using it. And there is no right way of doing it. Like there's some instances where we learn through trial and fire, and that's okay, but at the end of the day, like we're growing and understanding it, and it's getting better day by day by day internally, so that our return can be then handed over to our clients who have amazing work products at the end of the day. So it's a fun balancing act that we get to do all the time.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting the amount of times that our team is slacking about the newest tool that we've noticed come out, and look at this little tutorial on it, look at this demo. Oh my gosh, we could use it for this client. Let's test it out. Let's see how it works first. And then, but there's so much new stuff coming out, and we're always trying to ideate on how to implement it into the workflow. And there's some really cool things that have come from it. So yeah, I do want to kind of finish up the conversation hitting that nail on the head of what that looks like with human creativity, AI, what you're excited about for the future with marketing and in the space, and like what you're looking forward to with AI and creativity.
Yeah, I think this is a great spot in the conversation to flip the script, because I think we've talked about how AI is so powerful, but we've really talked about the guardrails, the hesitancies, the complexities of the ethical considerations and complications of using AI day to day. But I want to flip the script and now talk about, AI isn't the enemy of human creativity, but I think it can be it's a partner. And I think the best way to think of it is that AI is the paintbrush, but it's not the painter. So, it can generate hundreds of variations, but it can't set that vision or tell that authentic story. And that's our role as humans. So to think about AI, and a challenge is always to, look at AI for your internal efficiency. So generating draft content, speeding up your workflows. But at the end of the day, what is going to be the final call is going to rest with your people. And that's because fairness and your authenticity, your empathy, that those things can't be automated. So those have to come from your human judgment. So what we always challenge our team members to think or say or ask themselves is will AI replace creativity? But the better question to really actually be asking is, how do we use AI to amplify our creativity while still keeping those ethics front and center? And I think that's that sweet spot. So where that leaves us is just AI is transforming marketing. It's transforming everything, but marketing specifically, when it comes to creativity, and creativity without ethics is just hollow. So thinking about that transparency and always putting an emphasis on that, because transparency builds trust. Authenticity connects you to your audiences. And, those bias checks, privacy protections, those are going to ensure our fairness and even amplify the trust with your brand, with your consumers, with your audiences, and people that you're trying to reach. That governance is going to provide the guardrails for your enterprise that can be repeatable and scalable across your teams. And then that allows us for humans and AI to work together. We don't just create more, we can create better, which is the goal. So as you head into your next project, your next campaign, ask yourself, am I using AI in a way that reflects my values? Am I building trust? And am I eroding it? Am I amplifying my own human insight, and not replacing it through an AI tool? I wrote a blog a while back on LinkedIn about I use AI as a conversation sometimes, but I use this AI tool to identify my own bias in my leadership and in managing my team. And a huge disclaimer that I put in the middle of that article is AI is not a replacement for your critical thinking. Use your human brain. And that still applies here. So, in the end, the goal is that ethics and creativity aren't competing against each other. These should be partners, and we should strive to be marketers who embrace both. And that's what's going to really lead into the future of innovation and using innovative tools. AI is not going to be the last, oh my gosh, wow, this is changing everything that we do. There's going to be something else that's going to emerge who knows how long from now, and we're going to be having these same conversations. So this is not a one and done. AI's here. I'm a better marketer because I'm going to stop here. This is, I think, a framework of thinking and a way of being a professional in an industry that we should always be adopting the thought process of how can I be creative, how can I be ethical, and how can I use my human insight, my brain, my experience, my education, whatever it is, to have better outcomes of the work that I do. So I'm really excited because if this conversation resonated with you as an audience member as well, at all, if it resonated with you, the reality is that AI in marketing is not distant. It's here. It's happening right now. And the difference between the brands that are going to drive and thrive and the ones that are going to stumble will come down to one thing, and that's readiness. So at ArtForm, something that I'm deeply passionate about. You mentioned earlier, Laura, that I nerd out about AI. I absolutely do. So something that we love doing is just helping those organizations build that readiness and identify that. So from developing your AI policies that are going to protect that trust to delivering AI trainings and workshops that can empower your team, and hands-on projects and hands-on demonstrations that can make your people not just AI aware, but AI confident. That's what we're passionate about. What we're excited about is just to make sure that your creativity and your ethics can grow stronger together. So whether you're a federal agency or a government contractor or a commercial brand, that time to act is right now. So I strongly recommend and urge people to not wait until regulations force your hand or until your competitors should pull ahead. So really invest in that AI readiness today so you can really lead with confidence moving forward. So if you want to learn more about our workshops or our trainings or just how to explore how to put an AI policy in place for your team, visit our website and just be excited to build marketing that's not just smarter, but it's more ethical and it's creative and it's more human. Use the brains on your team because people can create beautiful things and they can create even more beautiful and efficient things with the right tools in their hands.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We're going to link everything that we've just mentioned, the blog, the workshops, everything down below if you want to check it out and see what we offer. I'd also encourage you to kind of start taking that next step, deep dive into what AI looks like in your business, in your specialty. The next step could be checking out this video that we also have on AI implementation in SEO. So if you're interested, I would go ahead and click on that. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching.